Welcome to the Iowa RIA and Iowa Landlord Association, where we educate, advocate, and empower real estate investors.
Well, good morning, all. Raise your hand if you can hear me okay.
I can hear you okay.
I can.
Oh, okay. Well, we are starting to get going, and I just see that Debi Durham has joined us. Or Durham. Debi Durham, yes. Hello,
I'm
Debbie.
here. Hey, how are you?
Good. We're just kind of getting everybody admitted to the room.
Perfect. Thank you for rescheduling this. I appreciate that.
Yes. We know that now and then higher authorities call on us to do things, and we try to be flexible here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, absolutely. And you're the main guest speaker for today. I was kind of expecting you on phone, but you're able to be here in person on video.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've got a rock star tech team still here, so they can help me navigate all this stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. Well, I'll keep an eye on admittance, but the agenda is going to be, once again, fairly flexible. We're not going to be rigid with it at all. I do want to remind people that we also have an event this evening, different theme though. Bill Twyford, who's been with us, but way back in 2012, about 8 years ago, he was with us. Spoke out at Stony Creek and then down at the Papa John Center. And he's going to be talking about market conditions and some of the things you can anticipate in the next few months as hopefully we get out and able to do more business again. So that starts at 6 and he'll be on at 6:15 and go to about 7:15 or 7:30. I will also share quickly the results of a survey that we did, and I sent that, and I don't know if Debbie, if you had a chance.
I did. Yeah, I got it. So thank you.
Okay, to look at that a little bit. Now the one I'm looking at's not the right one, so I'm going to go here, and this is where this will be from our website. The users that are familiar with our website know that at the top we have this link to COVID-19 related information, and we just posted a new results of the survey here at the top, and in here we had responses and then we showed the percentages. And I just would go through this quickly. A thing that really stands out to me, and I think to many of our members, is that this moratorium, I think the first one was March the 20th. And then, so it said that, you know, you couldn't do evictions. And so we were, of course, we knew we'd have some folks that wouldn't pay. But number 3 was, is rental property your primary source of guaranteed income? I was kind of surprised to see that 63% said yes. And then we looked at it. Number 2 was, do you have any rental units for which April rent has not been paid? And that was at 67%. So 74 out of 110 said yes. That's a pretty high number. Anybody have any comments on that before we turn control of the meeting over to Debbie? How is it going out there?
Is that to me, Ken, or are you talking to your members? Oh,
yeah, to our members. I mean, yeah,
okay, good.
Yeah, everybody's kind of quiet, but I just wonder if things in change. Well, here we are in May now, and so we had 76% of folks saying that, you know, we had units that they hadn't paid in April, but at that point in time, it was still somewhat early on the stimulus checks being sent, and I know of people who have received $2,200 in the form of a stimulus check. Not only did they pay April rent, but they paid May's as well as soon as they got it, because they knew things might be tight, and they still had money left over. So,
Andrew, I would like to comment on my tenants in general, and I am quite surprised. I thought there would be more tenants that would take advantage of they didn't have to pay the rent, but I did not find that to be the case with my tenants.
That's great news.
Andrew, it was same for me. Everyone paid. I know they're getting monies from different places too. The one thing though that I did, because I have one that's a fourplex, is I put signs up, and then I provided them with hand sanitizer and spray sanitizing and stuff like that. So, because they share the same handrail and the same doorknobs. So that's the only thing different in my life.
they share the same handrails and doorknobs on some of your units, so you got them some hand sanitizer and some cleaning materials.
Yes, and I also
Disinfectants and
posted a sign saying that the signs were available.
This is Pre. My renters haven't paid for April or May.
Oh,
You have all of them or just one?
I have two that haven't paid now.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, and so there's the next question here, number 4, was this moratorium on evictions. This one that had the most responses was, we had 46% of the people that said this moratorium on evictions could severely impact my financial well-being. And from what I hear Pre saying is she probably is one of those 51.
Correct.
We admit a couple more.
Andrew, now that the state's being opened up come tomorrow, does that mean that tenants have to start paying rent again?
The way I understand it from the proclamation that's currently in place is that the 27th, that the moratorium was through May 27th, and the language of the proclamation said something to the effect of don't anticipate an extension beyond this time.
Okay.
and Andrew, I can confirm that there is no intention to extend it beyond that date.
Okay. Well, and we have quite a few more people that have joined. So, and I know we don't want to go beyond. I just wanted to get a couple more things. So everybody that's on the call, we have some people who've never been on a call yet, are aware of some of these survey results. But when the moratorium happened, I think, Debbie, the number one thing that concerned a lot of people was, why is this an across-the-board moratorium, even for people who aren't directly or indirectly impacted by the COVID? And, like, did they have, the disease themselves, or did they lose their job, or one of their family members? Then people could understand that a little bit easier. But when the moratorium was first issued, it was across the board. So like on this delinquency responses, when we had people responded, a total of 5,755 units under management, of that, they said 18% of them were delinquent. That'd be a huge number. Typically, delinquencies are more like 1 or 2%. So that seemed like a very large number. And then they basically said they'd like us to petition the governor's office. We haven't done that directly yet because the most recent moratorium gave us a timeline when it looked like it was going to be over.
Yep.
But we have letters, and we have some people that have sent letters directly to the governor. So with that, I'm going to turn control of the meeting over to you, and you tell us a little bit more what you know and about the, and then we'll open up for question and answers after that.
Oh, thank you. Well, Andrew, thank you very much. And again, I do want to apologize. I
I'm
wasn't
going to
able
stop
to join
sharing
you.
the screen and
Oh, I want to
This is,
apologize. for not-
I'll introduce Debi Durham is with the Iowa Finance Authority and also with the Iowa Economic Development Authority. And so you are executive director of both groups.
Correct, correct.
Okay, now for some reason I can't hear you, but
Oh,
now I can.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm going to unmute everyone and yeah, I can hear you now. So,
Okay, very good. Very good.
okay, and so how long have you been in this capacity?
Well, I've been director of IEDA from January of 2011, and then it was 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, that I came in with the Governor Reynolds administration, that I was made dual director of both IEDA and the Iowa Finance Authority. And so, yeah, we've been doing that ever since. And it makes a lot of sense when you really look at the missions of both organizations. You know, we both have a consumer-facing agencies that are all about building the economy, whether it's on the economic development side or whether it's on the community development side. So I'm humbled to serve, actually. And even though it's been really different, Andrew, you know, we've got 95% of our staff of a little over 200 people working remotely and not missing a beat. And during the meantime, not only are we continuing to do our regular programs, but we're also been asked and tasked with some pretty heavy lifts about creating new small business incentive programs and targeted small business incentive programs, and to get those launched in record time and get money out the door, because we know people across industry sectors have certainly been greatly impacted by this. So you are correct. The moratorium was made, and it was very broad brush. And, you know, I think there's a lot of things we probably could do differently, you know, looking at it from this vantage point. Part of it is it's really difficult, you know, what documentation do you use and how do you do that to convince people you're actually COVID related, so on and so forth. But the news is that it is not going to be extended. And so that moratorium will in fact end on May 27th. What I can tell you is through IFA, through ESG programs, and IEDA through CDBG programs, there has been money allocated to do some rent replacements for those that were truly impacted by COVID, right? So those people that unfortunately are just taking advantage of the situation is not someone we're going to assist. But those that have a direct line of sight and an impact to COVID, and we're working on what documentation we're going to need to know that, will certainly be eligible for those funds. And we're not going to give them directly to the tenant. We would be giving them directly to the landlords on behalf of the tenants. So it's going to be a partnership, if you will, because we'll have to have sign off from the landlords that it is in fact going for their back rent, and then they're not going to be evicted if in fact we make this this subsidy. Now, what I hope to have had be able to announce to you today, but unfortunately I have not gotten the word, is it is very apparent to me and our staff here, our team, that the money coming directly to the agencies through those two venues, the ESG and the CDBG, is not going to be sufficient enough to carry what we estimate the real need is out there. I was encouraged by a couple of the landlords I heard on the line that, you know, they've not had any problems with their tenants. I mean, that's certainly encouraging to hear, but I know that's not across the board as your survey indicates. So I have proposed to Governor Reynolds that we use some of the $1.25 billion CARES money that has been allocated to the executive office of our state, to the governor's office, that we run a state program. And we are currently, I've asked for a substantial amount of money that I'm not willing to share at this time, because obviously it has not been approved, and you know, I don't want to set up false expectations, but it's substantial. And so we are working with our partners of how we would manage such a robust program in a very short period of time. The good news is that, you know, IFA has been down this road before with disasters, as has IEDA through CDBG. And so we aren't starting from scratch. There are some infrastructure already existing, and there's partnerships that we have developed that means that we can move the money very quickly. And so that's the intention. So I really hope by the end well, I guess that's tomorrow, basically. I'm hoping to have a response to that yet this week, if not the first part of next week. So there's a website that I think your members should be paying attention to, and that is certainly the IowaHousingRecovery.com site. And then there's a partner website, IowaBusinessRecovery.com. Both of those will have updated information on any programs that we're involved in or any programs that we think would be beneficial to your membership. And Andrew, certainly once we have a go-ahead of funding and program parameters, what the guidelines are going to be, all of that information, we will make sure that we get to you directly. So you will have that, just immediately for your membership to share. So with that, why don't I just pause? Oh, by the way, the other thing we're going to be doing, Andrew, and I'm going to also have Ashley send out to you, is today we are once again doing another business survey with our partners at the University of Northern Iowa Institute for Decision Making. We did that right as soon as Iowa was, we realized that we were not going to be immune from this pandemic. We got in really early and gathered some great baseline. Now the survey will be a little bit more granular in the sense that we're going to be pulling out different industry sectors and asking some more pointed questions. And one of those is obviously the property management industry. So we would want your members to fill that out, because the importance of this survey is, I know there's a lot of surveys out and going around, and obviously you have yours, and I appreciate the data you shared. But the survey that we are doing will be distributed to every employer in the state and all the associations that we touch. And it will be the information that we will use as we look towards mitigation. And that as we are dealing with certainly, how to stop the stopgap for those that are behind. But then also as we turn our eyes towards recovery and ultimately going back to our original mission of growing the state. So I think those are the new things that I have. I thought your survey was extremely informative, and so I'm really grateful that you thought to share that with us. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Debbie. This is Pri. Thank you for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your time. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Perfect. I wanted to shout out to Brian Sullivan. I've been in contact with him, and he's been a gem of a person and a huge resource just trying to help navigate this difficult time. So I wanted you to know that about Brian.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking time to do that shout out. And I agree, Brian is we're very lucky to have him. He's been with this organization for a number of years. What you may not know is that he was just recently promoted as a senior member of our cabinet. And so he oversees not only all the community development programs for IFA, but he actually oversees all the community development programs for CDBG, so that we can strengthen what we do, but without duplicating, right? So thank you for sharing that. And I think he may even be on the phone. So I'm sure that that was nice for him to hear as well.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing what's going on in your travels. And I just wanted to make a point here, as you're defining the criteria for that funding that is going to tenants that are affected by COVID. I want your team to be mindful that all of us are affected by COVID, and let me explain that. So okay. I have a tenant that hasn't paid in March, didn't pay in March, and wasn't affected by COVID. And I was on the verge of doing the 3-day quit to cure and evicting him. And there was a moratorium on evictions. So even though he wasn't affected by COVID, I am out of rent now for 3 months because I haven't been able to evict him. I haven't been able to get another tenant in there, which drastically is affecting my income potential. And I'm a mom and pop landlord. I don't have economies of scale. So I did apply to the TSB funding as well, which was one of the things that Brian had told me about, and got denied for that because clearly the money ran out. So even though this tenant of mine was not directly a COVID catastrophe or calamity, it still has affected the moratorium, which was in place for COVID, has indirectly or directly still affected. So I hope that as you look at the big picture and you guys define the criteria for this funding available to clients, that there is some sort of fund set up for landlords that are truly affected and not being able to, property taxes and insurance still has to be paid on these properties. So I just hope you take that into consideration as well.
Well, first of all, let me just say that is great feedback. And so let me just tell you the needle we have to thread, and we are going to take this into account because of our moratorium being so broad brushed when we passed it, is we just have to make sure whatever we do passes the federal regulation, because what we don't want to do is create an unintended consequences where the state then has to reimburse the feds, or we individually have to reimburse the feds. But bringing that to our attention, what we will do is see if we can get some guidance from the Treasury on this funding prior to it going out, because that is an excellent point you make, absolutely, and not something I quite frankly really thought about. So again, thank you for that, and we will definitely see what we can do within working with our federal partners on that.
Perfect, and thank you so much.
Can I say something? I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, well, you're doing it just fine. I see you in everything. Yes.
So you've got renters who are actually making more on unemployment than they did working and refusing to pay rent. So a mom and dad each getting $600 plus whatever they're getting unemployment is more than and not paying rent. Now, can you go back? So you can't evict them, but they don't want to pay. They went and spent a bunch of money on a brand new lawnmower and, went to a hotel to stay and this and that. So you can't evict them. You can tell them they still need to pay the rent. At some point and I guess I haven't been paying enough attention to this because I didn't think I was going to run into this, but at some point, can we still collect that back rent then? Is that right or not?
Yes. Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Absolutely. And, you also bring up a great point. We have created an unintended consequences in the federal unemployment program. And the reason we did that, they were trying to set a situation where people were made whole, right? Not that they came out ahead. Because as you all know, when you go on unemployment, it is not dollar for dollar. It's not parity with what you were making, right? It's a reduced rate. What they found out, unfortunately, and this lesson learned for all of us, to be honest, is that our systems are so antiquated in the states across the nation that they couldn't figure that out. So they came up with a number, and what they did was create this unintended consequence. So let me tell you two things. Yes, they still have to pay that, right? Secondly, the other issue, and we're going to have to figure out how to reconcile that when we're also giving money, right? Because if they've got the money to pay, we should not be subsidizing that. But yet at the same time, we want to make you whole because you didn't do anything wrong in this equation, right? We get that. So that's a balancing act we have to do. Let me also make very clear, and IWD has been very clear about this. If you have a job to go to and you do not have any compromising health reasons not to go, you are not entitled for unemployment. And though we all know, because of the way this thing has happened so quickly and we have been in triage mode, that there are people that have gotten unemployment that quite frankly shouldn't be, and they should be working. There will be a day of reckoning. That will all get audited, and that will come back on these individuals. And I don't think they understand the real penalty that puts them in, because not only will they have to pay that back, there will be charges brought against them, but more importantly, it will also affect them on future unemployment. So, they're not thinking, and I have to tell you, there's been a lot of misinformation provided out by even some, I think, people that meant to do well, but are really giving misguidance to these folks. And so we're going to be very strong on that front. But that's another good point, and something that we will definitely have to thread that needle as we put together our guidelines. I have to tell you, Andrew, the timing of this call is just actually perfect, because we haven't drafted. I mean, we're still drafting the application and the qualification. So all these things that your members are sharing with us are things that we're going to think through before we release any application going forward.
Debbie, may I give you a comment?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, if you could pass this on to the governor, I think everybody would appreciate it. And that is, when she comes out, she says, if you do not pay your rent, you can't be evicted. I never seem to hear her ever say, but you still owe the rent. I never hear anybody say that.
Yeah, well,
Maybe that comment could be passed on to the governor, that she could make that crystal clear, because we all know people believe what they want to.
Yeah. And honestly, she has done that, but not to the, I mean, if you haven't heard it, I'm sure a lot of other people haven't heard either. So yeah, we will, certainly as we look at a program, we'll be very mindful of that. Good
I think that fact should be emphasized loud and clear.
Absolutely. It's just like, you know, when people are getting taxes deferred, that's deferred. They still owe their taxes, right? We're not forgiving taxes.
That's correct.
And it's the same thing for rent. So yes, thank you. And we'll make sure we're more sensitive to the communication on that. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
My name is Prakash, and I manage my apartment here. The problem we're having here is the people, they are not going to pay the rent. They can't, or they don't. So the hearing we had for May 15th, that was for March and February rent. Now that got postponed till July, and we cannot evict them till July. So from February, March, April, May, June, July. So they will be staying there, and we cannot do anything. And on the top of that, we have to provide them electric and water. And we have to take care of their heating, cooling, anything goes wrong in the apartment. And when we are not collecting any money from them, and we'll be taking care of all those things, water department, they want their late fee. I talked to them last week, they said you have to pay the late fee.
Huh.
So some of these things, I mean, I don't know how long it's going to go. And people will be staying there without paying rent, and we will be responsible for their needs. Like appliances goes bad, the power in the building, the water in the building, and to their apartment.
Yeah. So are you talking, okay, so let me get this straight. The July thing that you're talking about, is that because this is a federal guideline, so you must be doing, you have properties that are federally subsidized? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Okay,
so for the non-payment of rent, we had filed it in February, and since March it has been closed, so they had given us May 15th, the hearing date. Now that has been postponed to July because it's not going to open on May 15th.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay.
The one is the governor's proclamation. The other is the court supervisory order from Chief Justice, the new Chief Justice.
Okay. Let me look into that, because we really probably should try to be coordinated. I mean, obviously there is a separation of power between us and the courts, but we should be having a conversation. And also, you know, looking at the utilities, that's a very good point as well. I assume that's the Des Moines Water Works that's still going to assess the late fee. Is that correct?
That's what they told me.
Yeah. Well, let me just make a call. I don't know if I can change that, but it seems like with everybody else making concessions that these, I mean, we're making all kinds of concessions on our loan programs, and you know, pushing payments down the road, but not penalizing people. I'm very disappointed to hear that, to be honest. So I'm gonna make a call this afternoon on that.
Yeah, that is kind of understandable. You know, we are all going through this problem. So the tenant, not everybody. That is understandable. But the fact is, when we are providing this facility and we don't collect any money, I don't know where we're going to get that money.
Yeah, well, again, I don't know that I will be any good, but you know, I will definitely be happy to make a call and to the higher beings over there to say, you know, you should really think through some of this, and you should be able to discern who's in a situation like yours and who's not just paying, right? Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Debbie, this is Pri again. To Prakash's point, I also wanted to say that he was one of the lucky few that actually filed in February and then had a court hearing date. For some of us that are going to inundate the court system once they open up in May, I was talking to one of the Des Moines City housing inspectors from neighborhood housing inspections, and he was telling me about his court dates now been scheduled to December for an authorized structure that he found on an inspection site. And it just makes me very, very anxious on when the system does open up and we do file for FEDs, how overwhelmed they're going to be. So I guess my point is there any sort of leverage that your agency has to take our agony and let the court systems know that they're going to have to prioritize these evictions so we can actually have some income coming in? Because I think there's this false sense of perception that landlords have buckets and buckets of gold. And I can guarantee you, as a mom and pop landlord, that is not my reality at all.
Yeah.
So is there any
you know, honestly, all I can promise you is that I'm happy to have a conversation, but, you know, again, the separation of the branches of power, you know, we don't have any control over the court system, but I can certainly make a call to say, you know, this is coming, and see if they've gotten any, you know, ideas on how they're going to expedite some of this backlog that has been created. I mean, we'll definitely coordinate, but, you know, beyond that, I don't know what I can offer, but certainly we will stress your point to them. You know, and I'm sure they know that, but maybe just to kind of put an explanation point on it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please. I filed a 3-day notice with my tenants yesterday, and that's 36% of my income.
Oh, wow.
And I can't evict them. I gave them the 3-day notice so that I can file it on time, but I'm still out.
Yeah. Did any of you apply for the PPP through the Small Business Administration?
I did.
I don't have any payroll.
Okay. Oh, you don't have any payroll. Okay. Okay.
Well, yeah, we did. We actually, on that survey, we asked that question, and we
Okay.
had 3 people apply. And let me see if I can pull that up. We had 3 people that applied for the PPP and have actually received the funding.
Wow.
Okay.
And then we had 1 person applied for EIDL, that advance, and that actually was the association, and we received both. So that down here on the right is the figures. We are the only entity that applied for both, and we got $10,000, $10,048. Now, of course, the PPP one, had some real serious constraints on it for a while, but I think they've improved that a little bit. And so if you pay out just 75% towards payroll, but anybody else that is having a hardship because of this, I would recommend that there may be EIDL money still available. In fact, some of the larger corporations have sent the money back because,
Do you know that?
you know, so something to think about.
But the application isn't even online. It just says that the funds have been exhausted and have been appropriated. And to Debbie's point about PPP, since, you know, for sole proprietors like myself, Debbie, that don't have payroll, I did the TSB sole proprietor funding, and I got a very nice email back saying that the funds were exhausted. So we're back in this we're back in this conundrum of no money, no applications available.
So those of you that are sole proprietor, I mean, I would have thought you would have been eligible for the emergency unemployment. Is that not the case?
No.
Well,
it's not.
They should be eligible. And that's one thing I will mention this too. If any of you know Ying Saw with Community CPA, she's been having daily meetings online at 3 o'clock. Has anybody attended those?
She's fabulous, by the way.
What? Yeah. We got a few? Yeah, she goes through it with quite a bit of detail and make sure that everybody is aware of what you can and cannot do with these 2 loans. And I wanted to have an answer. I wanted to call her this morning and see if she's still having them, but you might make a note of that, because they're open to the public, and she goes through it with quite a bit of detail.
Yeah.
And so some of that money may still be available, but you're also saying, Debbie, that there is another program. You called it TSD, or?
Oh, the TSB, but as one of your callers just said, Bruce said that it is actually exhausted. The funds went pretty quickly. And at this point, we don't have any additional funding. But I will also work with my friend Beth Townsend at IWD, because, you know, we do have unemployment now for sole proprietors. And so I guess I'm unclear of why. I mean, you still have to jump through some other hoops. I mean, so there are some other, but I would think that, you know, you guys would be candidates for those of you who have no employees for that.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, Debbie?
Well, honestly, what I just said is about all I know. So if you go, yeah, because that's not my territory, even though we work very closely together. But if you go to Iowa Workforce Development's website, and I think surely you could do a search for like sole proprietors. I would think the information would come up. If you can't find it, email me, and then I will email her directly. Do you guys have my email address?
Can
you
also
share that, please?
We actually have it posted at our website right here under loan information for the self-employed. If you're a Schedule C filer, you should be eligible to apply for this loan.
Yeah, but I was thinking of unemployment, though, to see if they would be qualified for some of the revenue laws. So that's different than what this is, though, Andrew. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and you know, maybe you're not, but boy, it's certainly worth exploring. But yeah, if you put out my email address, if you guys want to email me, I can at least track it down.
Perfect. So is that, Andrew, is Debbie's email going to be posted on the website?
Well, yes, sure. We will get it done. We'll get that done.
Okay, but do realize I'm not an expert in all this. So when you put my name up on the website, I don't know the answers to all these questions. So.
Right. Well, the one thing is if you're self-employed and you're filing a Schedule C, all I'm trying to mention is you may be eligible for some funding that you're not aware of. So
yeah, that's a good point.
And these questions are answered here on this form right on our website. So
perfect.
Thank you.
Is it possible for government to find out from the landlord how many tenants they haven't paid rent and they are still there, and send them a check direct to the landlord instead of the tenant?
Yeah, our program that we're talking about instituting will go directly to the landlord. It's not going to go to the tenant, but it's it'll have to be assigned to the tenant. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's what.
But it's not started yet, has it?
No, we're still waiting to get approval for it. So as soon as we get approval, we'll make that public announcement, and I'll send it out to Andrew, so he'll have the information for all of you.
Yeah, I heard one thing on Channel 8 few weeks back. They were kind of saying that, okay, landlord cannot evict you, all the tenant can stay there free, kind of thing.
Oh, I'm not aware of that. So
I heard that. I'm not 100% sure, but they said this is what the Channel 8 is saying.
That was Todd Magel on Channel 8.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Todd Magel.
I wasn't aware.
I was wanting to go back and maybe bring up an idea. I think Pat, you kind of started this on asking if we could if the governor could make some type of statement, about, you still have, pay your rent.
Right. That never gets said.
Yeah. Is there any way we could get some type, I guess I'm thinking, is there any way we could get some type of a written statement with somebody's official signature or on it that could be distributed to our tenants, basically stating, hey, we understand if you can't pay your rent because you are directly, impacted by COVID, but if you're not, you're expected to pay your rent. This is not a freebie. Rent isn't forgiven during this time frame.
Right.
And if you're just not paying your rent because you think you don't have to, there are going to be consequences in the next, 30, 60, 90 days, whatever. I think what we have out there is a lot of these tenants that aren't paying their rent think it's a freebie. They think they can get away without doing it and nothing's going to happen to them. And so if we can help maybe educate them a little bit, and we have some backing from an official source from maybe the state or the county, wherever, that we can share that information with them, maybe that'll help in getting some of these folks to realize, hey, yeah, that's my responsibility. I'm still, I'm getting some unemployment. I got some extra money over here from the federal government. Yeah, I can go ahead and pay my rent. I'm one of the lucky. I consider myself a little bit lucky here because I haven't been really impacted by any of this yet, and the only reason because of that is because I'm not heavily involved in rental property at the moment. I'm doing more investing and flips and things like that. So that's been going really well. So I haven't had to apply for any of the special loans or anything like that. So I feel pretty. I'm happy about that, but I feel for all of my colleagues that have been impacted by that. So.
Well, let me look into that of who would be, the best person to sign something like that. So we certainly made note of that.
Fantastic.
I think to sort of just add to that, I did have a Facebook comment. Andy McKean put something out on Facebook yesterday, and I responded specifically about the issue of tenants paying rent and indicated to him one of the issues that we have is that there are elderly small operators who rely on those funds, those rental funds, in order to supplement their income. And when a tenant doesn't pay, that really impacts that elderly client, and that elderly operator, and they very well could lose the property, which means then we have a loss of housing for someone where it may be very affordable, but they're not understanding they actually need to pay the rent. Right. Especially if they are still working and haven't had a reduction in their income, that rent is still due. And it's going to become a real problem either if that elderly person loses the property through foreclosure because they can't pay their mortgage.
Absolutely.
And I think that's not well understood. I really think it's not very well understood by most people.
Yeah, I would concur. Representative, he does such a nice job too, I tell you.
He does, and he does a great job.
He really, he's so, he's very caring as an individual and very responsive to his constituents. All right. Well,
that's a very good point. And the thing we did not send to you was anything formal in documentation other than that survey. And we appreciate you coming here today and hearing some of our pain because it's on a scale, a continuum. And I know that the Iowa state government didn't invite COVID in here. None of us did. But I appreciate you saying, okay, we're going to try to make sure we work with you. And if people do have something in particular that they want to send to Debi Durham at the Iowa Finance Authority, we will get you that email. The one thing is I think that was great. We had 2 or 3 people that recommended that in one of these proclamations or even just a press conference, a press release or some kind of, to make it clear to tenants that part of the reason they're getting this stimulus is so that they're not being evicted.
Right.
I mean, the proclamation is to keep people from having to go out on the street and be difficult to find another place right now maybe. But it's going to happen real quick, and all of a sudden they're going to find they owe 2 or 3 months worth of rent.
Right.
That's not going to be a good situation. And but the communication with the court, I don't know. I think we have a couple contacts there, and maybe we could get some clarity and try to hopefully get the timing together so that at the time the moratorium on evictions is lifted, they could at least begin telephonic hearings. I don't understand what we're doing a Zoom meeting here. We got 25 people, 26 people on the call. They'd only need 4 or 5. And I know you don't have any authority over the judicial branch, but the Senate authorizes their budget, and maybe we should have one of these with Brad Zahn, who's chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, because all this while, these things they're just backing up. And I heard from Pat that he thought that the priority the court was going to address first when they do open up would be criminal cases. Well, for all those people that are holding right now, waiting to either pay me rent or you're going to be evicted, and it's going to happen real quick, if they have to wait till, I've heard September, October, November, boy, that's really going to create a super hardship. So,
yeah, that's
Well, I think
going to
that's
put a huge undue hardship on the landlords if this continues for many more months. And I think any good lawyer could take that to a judge and make that type of thought process work for them.
Well, I think that's a great idea to have your legislators come in and share these same concerns with them, because it's certainly been very beneficial for me today.
okay, well, with that, we will say thank you very much.
Oh,
for your
thank
time.
you. All right. All right. I'm going to
Appreciate
leave
your
you
time.
now.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're gonna spin the wheel for prizes.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, for those people on the event today that were here, we got to figure out how to do this, but we're going to give away 2 Home Depot cards.
Yay.
Couple Home Depot cards, and that we're going to double it when you spin the wheel. When you pick the category, we've done this before at our regular meetings. This is the first time we're doing it live on Zoom, just like Jeopardy or something. But when we spin it, if you hit, then we're going to give you what?
Where's Vanna?
Vanna?
Yeah.
She had the day off. But if you hit
Andrew,
the exact one, we'll double it. We'll double what this value is. So go ahead.
And Andrew, for those of us that are on the phone that are not actually spinning it, are you going to be the spinner?
Oh, I'm going to be the spinner for all people, because nobody can reach through the digital waves either. Unfortunately, yes. I'm doing the spinning. You're doing the calling, and the way we're going to do this is I need you to write down a number, and then I'm going to ask everybody to be honest. You're all landlords, so you're real estate investors. You're honest, but write down a number between 1 and 100.
Okay.
And then we'll ask you to show your number. So you'll have to take it up. Now, so don't do it like I did, a little bitty number. Put a big number.
Okay. Well,
so that you say, look, I really am telling the truth. There's a 1 on there. See that?
My background is.
So Andrew, since you can't see my number, do I just blurt it out loud?
Well, just write it down right now. That's the step.
Okay, done.
Okay, now it's the number between 1 and 100, and I'm going to have Jeannie Murphy write down another number.
Okay.
Oh no, it'll have to be me because you want to win. I have to write the number down. I'm sorry. Yeah, see, this isn't. We don't do this every week. We got to do it a little different. So I'm writing the number down now. Everybody ready to go?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the closest to the number 9?
I have an 8.
Oh my gosh.
3 has an 8.
I do.
I originally wrote down 9, but you saw it, so I changed my number to 52.
Okay. Well, can anybody beat? Oh, look at 4. We got to see a 4. Anybody beat an 8? That's the question.
That's pretty hard to do.
All right, now I've unmuted everybody.
8.5.
Did I win? Did I win? Did I win? Is it my lucky day?
We're going to do this twice. We're going to do this twice. Okay, so we have pre right now. We're spinning for pre. Pre-pick a category. We have, can you familiar with our?
Can we do a different number?
You can't see it, but can you, we have education, legislative advocacy, vendors, legal process service, administrative forms, direct membership, return on investment, technology, and accounting services.
Legislative advocacy.
Okay, I'm spinning. We're spinning for pre for legislative advocacy. And you're going to win this card no matter what, but you're doubling it if we hit legislative advocacy.
Woohoo!
Oh, it looks, oh. Nope, but you won a Home Depot card. No one stacks up to you. $25.
Yay.
Buy yourself
That's
a nice
awesome.
flower. Or...
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get that to you. All right, we're doing the same thing again. Second chance to win.
Am I allowed to participate again, or am I out?
No, if you've won once already, we can't give it to you again.
I got it.
Okay, so everybody write down their numbers, and I'm writing the number. I got to make it bigger. Okay, everybody ready to go? We see Mario's. Anybody close to 33?
37.
We got a 37. We got two 37s?
23?
Okay, anybody close to, who's closer? We got Tom Milam and Laura. You have
39.
a 33. Anybody?
There's a 36. Angela has a 36.
Where's Angela? Oh, a 36. That's within 3. Anybody beat 36? No, nobody can beat 36? Okay, Angela. We see your number. All right, so you got to pick a category, quick. We don't see you though. We see your number.
I think she doesn't want to share video, but does she have audio on?
Should have. We got the number. Okay, let's see. We're going to have Laura pick a category for Angela.
Oh, forms.
All right, Angela's chosen forms. We're getting ready for the spin. Angela, keep your fingers crossed. Oh, look at that. Forms.
Oh, nice.
Good job, Laura. All right, well, you're doubled. So you're getting a $25 gift certificate from Home Depot and then a $25 RIA bucks from us. I got to make sure I write down your full name. So $50 is not bad for showing up today. Angela.
Yes. Can you hear me? My microphone must not be working.
We can hear you now.
You can. Okay. Yeah. All right. Great. Thanks, Laura. You picked the right one.
She picked the winner. Good for her. She's done that before. She did that at our conference too, our expo. Angela, last name?
Swank. S-W-A-N-K.
Okay. All right. Angela Swank, $25. All right. Well, now we're at the Q&A time, and also haves and wants. And I've got everybody unmuted. And if you're muted, it's because you have your microphone turned on. And so fire at will. Who has a have or a want? Laura.
I need a new roof. So I could use some suggestions on how to finance that.
Oh.
Hey, Laura, it's Marty Healy. I got a good guy, Roof Iowa. Go to roofiowa.com.
Thank you.
He does all my roofs.
If you're looking for finance, though, right?
He can provide financing if you need it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any kind of, is it any kind of roof, or is it steel or shingles?
You know, I've never had him do steel, but he does shingles.
Got it.
Be good if you could ask him and see.
I had gotten a quote from Heartland Roofing, but they just didn't seem to have any follow through, you know?
Oh, they may be really, really busy. I'll tell you what, they're a tenant in our complex, and they've really just taken off. They had a couple of trucks when they moved here about 9 months ago, and now they have like 6 trucks. So they may be real busy. And this time of year also.
One of the things, Laura, to watch out for is what I've learned about in the roofing industry over the years is ask how long they've been in business. It seems like a lot of companies will move in when they're following like a hailstorm. They'll do a bunch of roofs and then they'll leave. So it'll make it a little harder for warranty and for, warranty repair. So John Carrington's this gentleman's name. He's lived in Ankeny his entire life. He's been, I think it's 5 years in a row, he was voted Ankeny's best roofer. So he's got experience and he's not going anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marty.
You're welcome.
Hey, Laura, I would just add too, if we can be a resource, we might have some referrals for you.
All right,
If
thanks.
you
I'll
don't-
send you an email, Mario.
Yeah, we really don't, we'll do roofing, but we'll most of the time we just leave it to the folks who do it and try and steer our clients that way. It's not that we don't know how, there's just enough folks concentrated on it that.
Yeah, and
Might
it's
be
not just this kind of a roof. There's several different sections and apparently the roof wasn't laid correctly. The shingles weren't laid correctly to begin with, which is why there aren't any holes up there that we can find, but it leaks.
Well, it could be that you just need a repair.
I've sent a guy up there 2 or 3 times to repair.
Really?
Yeah.
Boy, I had a repair job done. I'll get hold of you for some people did a great job with our roof.
And I'm also, since I've got the microphone and you said needs and wants, I need another building. So I would be very interested in a single family or a duplex that I could purchase on contract.
And who is this speaking, please? Because this is Pri, and can we exchange information?
Hey, Pri, this is Laura Reynolds, and I'm in Des Moines. So I am looking for a building in Des Moines, preferably.
Okay, and Laura, what's your email?
PA Roger Investments @gmail.com. That's PA as in punk ass, Roger Investments with an S @gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Okay, so investment. Yeah, it's investments plural, right? @gmail.com.
Yep.
Okay, got it. All right, I'll send you some stuff over.
Thanks, Pri.
And I want to make sure everybody knows this. If you want to get in touch with a member, you can always go to the members directory and email them directly from that directory and ask for their email address.
Good to know. Thank you, Andrew.
Yep. Anybody else?
I just had a question based on what Debbie had mentioned about the sole proprietor unemployment stuff. Any of you on the call have done this?
No.
The EIDL or the
No, not EIDL. Yeah, not emergency disaster loan and not PPP, but she talked about unemployment, not Schedule C either. But she said something about unemployment for sole proprietors through Iowa Workforce Development because it's considered loss of revenue.
Okay.
And I didn't know if any of our members had experience with that because I've never heard of anything like this, and I want to look into it.
No.
Yeah, I think you would have to be probably like an S corp or someone that if you're a W-2'd employee, But hey, call Workforce Development. In fact, we have their page listed too at our website.
Okay.
But that's a real good point because if you're used to paying yourself some kind of a salary even if you're not a subchapter S corp, you may be eligible for unemployment.
I think she didn't even talk about the W-2. That's what intrigued me because I don't have an owner's draw. And she said something about loss of pure revenue. That's what got me all intrigued. So I don't think it even has to be a W-2, but I'm not sure how it's administered, the program. But I'll find out more about it.
Yeah,
I'll
we're
be looking
going to
into it
expect
too.
a full report from you two. That'll be great.
Sure thing.
Well, it's not quite noon. Does anybody have any other topics of interest or things that you've heard about that are actually improving during this time? Like that Bill Twyford, who's going to be talking tonight. Right now, during this time, it's probably not a good idea to go out and knock on doors and look for leads. But in the very near future, that could change. There could be some people that decide, you know, I've had enough of Iowa, I'm going to move out of the state. Or, you know, things change. Maybe they lost their job and they just can't seem to get it back, but they don't want to go into foreclosure, so they really want to work a short sale. Anything like that? I mean, because I have heard of people that are actually doing better because of COVID than they were before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know
Was that
property
Gary?
prices are not dropping.
I think, was that Gary that, Gary?
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Yeah, they get, for the lower income people, they do much better than if they were working. They get unemployment. They get $600 a week, which is like $15 an hour. And then they got the stimulus check. I mean, they're rolling in cash.
Well, I'm talking about people from business opportunity point of view, but yes, that is another point.
They should be able to pay their rent, except they're buying new big screen TVs and other things. But
how it works.
From a business point of view, I mean, property prices are not going down. They're holding steady or going up. So I'm not sure. Do we have any mortgage bankers or investment bankers in our group that can attest to, like, what's the inventory looking like today?
We do, or have had. I don't know who we have currently. I'd have to look at the vendors partner page. I'll show you that.
I didn't know if we had anybody on the call this morning, you know, that was that worked with the buying side of things, because I've been looking and it looks like, you know, property prices are holding steady or are going up, and COVID doesn't seem to have a negative impact on it.
Is this Pri that's asking that question?
Yes.
This is Angela. I'm a mortgage broker, so from the residential side, I don't handle commercial stuff, but from the residential side, if you're asking for residential purchases, rates are at extreme lows right now, but people are pretty timid. The inventory's low, so that's keeping prices up. I think a lot of people are doing remodeling and getting things ready to sell once this is gone. The agents that I'm talking to, we're starting to see, I have one agent at Keller Williams that they just closed down the office because there's a case of COVID there.
Oh, yeah.
So
guess who that is? That's one of our members.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
I'm seeing sellers a little bit more timid to put their houses on the market. The expectation is once this calms down a little bit, we're going to see a flood of houses go on for people that have been waiting to sell. However, there's a lot of people that I've talked to too that are getting wind of possible layoffs or downsizing with companies. And so there's a lot of people that are afraid to make changes with that going on. And tell you, from the qualifying standpoint, and I said this on the last call that I was able to get on.
Yep, I remember that, yes.
Yeah, one of the things you can use as ammo against your renters is if they are not paying rent, they will not qualify to buy a home. And chances are they're going to have a hard time renting somewhere else unless the landlord's not doing, checks. But I had a borrower who was going to just stop paying because she wanted to collect more money for down payment. I said, go right ahead. You won't qualify for a mortgage because they're now officially, and this is the first time I've been lending for 25 plus years. We have not done verification of rent checks on tenants for years. I mean, I can't remember the last 15 years ago. A new overlay or new guideline right now is you have to check the rent history in the last 12 months. And it cannot be someone saying, oh yeah, they pay on time. It has to be an official landlord, or you have to show canceled checks. So they are getting very picky about showing that people are keeping up with their bills right now, because these lenders don't want to make a loan to somebody who's just going to go into forbearance their first payment.
Right.
So you are
seeing. Yeah, I remember. Thank you, Angela, for sharing that, because I remember you talking about this at the, I think it was 2 calls prior to today's call.
Yes, I think you're going to see renters have a hard time buying. I think you're going to see the rental market increase in the number of renters that cannot buy, because they've also increased the minimum score from 580 to 640 on a lot of programs. So those lower credit people are not going to be able to buy.
Well, and just to support that that position, I have some available properties currently, and I'm getting tons of contacts with regard to people looking for a new property. They want to move. But what's been really interesting is several of them have said, well, I don't want you to pull my credit because I want to buy a house and I'm not quite ready, but I just don't want you to pull my credit. And I said, I'm sorry, but I always pull credit. I may not look at score, give it as much weight as looking at full credit history, but I'm going to pull your credit if you're going to rent from me. So, yeah.
I run credit on everyone, and I just had this conversation with an associate, and she got a 509 credit score, and I don't normally look at credit score, but during COVID, since you can't kick them out, and I don't know when these courts are going to get in line, but anybody you put into your places right now, I feel like you're risking no rent.
Absolutely.
They want to get in there and not pay. So you better make sure your standards are a lot higher than normal, I think.
Right.
I agree.
Right. Yeah, I pulled one last night and she came back with a 509 credit score, and it's just like, I can't do anything with that. It's just simply too low. And my worry based on the prior landlord is she's not going to be consistent, and that's just going to be a problem. So
I hate to say this, but I think you have to worry about landlords lying at this point too.
I got that too. Yep.
Tell me.
We never had that happen.
Yeah. I think
great. Take them.
I think the tenant actually gave me a friend to call regarding her prior rental. I don't think it was really a landlord, because when I pulled the property information, it was owned by someone, and that was not her. And I can't find any relationship whatsoever between her and that property. So I think she gave me a friend to call to get.
I always ask them about when they purchased the property, and the friends never know that information. I always ask them how long they've had the property, and
exactly.
They never seem to have that information.
Uh-huh. That's right.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they
can't
coach that.
Happens.
Yeah, they can't coach that imposter well enough to get them to pass your screening. That's great. That's great. Most of the time we just say, don't bother calling their current landlord, because if they're either going to say, yeah, they're a great tenant, or and they're going to say they're a great tenant even if they're a bad tenant, because they want them out. So I don't know.
I think the key is to call the previous landlord, not the current sometimes.
Right.
Well, and the credit report, I can't believe there are some landlords that still don't pull credit reports. We have an excellent service with CIC. Now, the one thing I do want to mention this, you're going to hear this over and over again, is that when we ask you to pay attention to the date of birth redaction issue that comes up to the legislature, which we hope will come up again this next year, we need input from people on why that's so important, so that you can get an accurate criminal report. I'll just say it. We abbreviate it. It's a date of birth redaction issue with the Iowa Supreme Court. The judicial branch has made a decision to not allow credit scoring and tenant screening companies to quickly inform you if there's been a court case, even for eviction, or if they have criminal activity. So big issue.
I'm sorry, I came into the meeting late. Did we talk about the proclamation in terms of the governor addressing lifting of the
yes,
evictions? Okay, I missed that. I'm sorry.
Well, what Debbie was saying is that it is the Governor Reynolds' intention that the moratorium would not be extended after the May 27th date.
Okay, May 27th. I've had several people ask me, and I told them I'd find that out today. So
wasn't it June 15th before? Now it's May 27th, or where's the disconnect for me?
June 15th is the court date, the court's date. May 27th is the evictions moratorium date.
Got it.
They're not in sync. But we've had a couple people ask the question, should I go ahead and serve my 3-day notice to pay unpaid rent, or 3-day notice to quit, or the 7-day notice to cure default? Any of those serious notices, could I serve them prior to the 27th? Well, you could.
I did.
I try to be within the number of days so that when the 28th comes, that's when you could begin, then you could file your FED.
Right.
So if you're going to serve it, in this case, you'd serve it on like the 25th or the 24th, but you'd mail it on the 24th. So
Andrew?
Yes.
It was my understanding that you go ahead and file your FED. They just won't do anything with it until the end of June.
yeah, that's my understanding.
Right, but I'm talking about the timing of the 3-day, and that was actually Jody McDougall. Yeah, Jody McDougall, Donna Davis Hockenberg said that if that's going to be used in an official court case, then you have to file it as though it's an official court document. I mean, the posting of that notice. I can post that link. To her article. I will do that on the COVID-19 page. It's very very legalese, a lot of legalese on it, but it clarifies some things on that particular issue.
Legalese clarifies?
Well, unfortunately, you have to get down in the weeds on that stuff. You could search for it yourself. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, do you have Debbie's email by any chance?
Not yet. Well, she seemed to make it clear that she was willing to make it public. So what I'll do is I'll post it on that COVID-19 link page, and I'll
okay, sounds good.
show that again, how people can get to there. All you have to do is go to our home page. Let's see if we can get to the home page.
And just an FYI, I'm sorry, just an FYI, Andrew, Brian texted me and said he was unable to join our call because his 10 o'clock call went over.
Okay. Well, I will put that information, her contact information, right up here. Let's see, where can we put it? I'll put it right down here under proclamations of Governor Reynolds. I'll put a little section for the Iowa Finance Authority and contact info.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
We'll do that so all of you on the call know about it.
I wonder what the courts are going to do about back rent. I don't really have a problem with this, but usually they only hear the case for the month you're in. They will not do anything with the cases prior. So
I'm sorry, who was that talking?
Gary Pitts.
Gary Pitts. So
Gary, apparently there's nothing the courts are going to do about that. Your only recourse is small claims court, is what I've been told.
Right, that's where you would do
money judgment.
FED and your money judgment.
But yeah, the FED is still for the current month as normal.
It is.
So you're gonna have to file for April and for May if they haven't paid either month.
Well, you can.
no,
The FED is for your current month.
Right.
FED
You
is
have
for
to
the
do
current
it for
month.
the current month only. The judges will not accept generally speaking, a judge will not accept a document for any prior month than the month that you're in.
Right.
So,
That's what I'm saying. So are they going to do it different now because of COVID-19? Because
right.
where you can file in
So the only option you have then is going to be under money damages in order to obtain a judgment for past due rent and your late fees and whatever else may be there. And you all know that the balance now, or the cap now with regard to small claims is 6,500. It's no longer 5,000.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're saying that you can't talk to the court about an FED except for the current month. You can't
Correct.
put together a money judgment for the entire amount.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, and in your statement, you would just reference, let's say February through May, if that's the time period. Even if your actual eviction month might be June, you do just the period of time. You don't have to list each month, just through that period. But you only can do it under the money damages. You just can't do it with an FED.
So the money judgment, you're just doing the statement or the account balance, and you don't have anything separate from that.
Right. Well, sometimes I list it when I do mine. I list the specific months, the specific late fees, and then if there is damages or cleaning, I specify what each thing is so that when they look at the disposition or the reconciliation, depending on what you call it, they're seeing that you've itemized that, but that particular information.
Well, that comes
always
later.
do that.
Right. But you can file your small claims damages claim at the same time that you do your FED.
Right.
Mary, do you also attach pictures to your statement?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
Sorry, Mary, this is Pri. Do you attach pictures of damages to the statement as well?
Typically not when I file the petition. I do not. I do file relatively soon thereafter because you're going to go into mediation for the money damages case prior to having a court case. Prior to the judge hearing it, you're going to have a mediation first. So you need those pictures ready for the mediation.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You'll have mediation for the FED also.
Ours do not do mediation prior to FEDs.
Oh, you
Where
don't?
are you at?
Wow. In Lynn
No,
County.
we go straight to a hearing.
Are you in Lynn?
There's no mediation. Now, while we're in court, the judge will frequently, at least in the 6th Judicial District, what they'll do is they'll ask the individual about paying the rent at that point, which is a sort of a mediation, but really we don't go through any sort of mediation prior to an FED. That's a more immediate kind of thing.
Wow.
However, one of the things I found with our judges is when you go in, let's say midweek, for an FED hearing, a lot of times they will allow that tenant to stay. Let's say if you go in on Wednesday, you're not going to be able to go in and get ready to have the sheriff serve them until Monday. They're just going to give them that extra time over the weekend to get moved out. So I have found that they won't do an immediate, it will not be an immediate eviction.
In Polk County, they give you immediate if the tenant doesn't show up. If the tenant,
Yeah, well, yeah, if they don't show up at that point, then usually they say either a specific date prior to or on that date. It kind of depends on the judge.
if they get 3 days and it's Wednesday, they're going to be able to stay till Sunday night or Monday morning.
Possibly. If they don't show up, the judge typically will give a specific date, which would be, let's say on the Friday, or prior to is usually the language. So on or prior to, and you have to do it by that date, or if not, then you got to start all over. But typically, if it's a no-show, that's what will happen. If they're there, the judge will give them additional time, usually through a weekend. So you can't really do anything until Monday, typically.
Well,
but again, that's going to depend on your district.
Well, the judge can't, by law, give them over 3 days unless it falls on a Saturday or Sunday, because they can't give them over 3 days.
They do.
Well, by law, they can't.
Well,
really?
Unless it
yeah,
falls
but it's hard to argue that. It is hard to argue that point.
Before they'll issue the writ you're talking about.
Yeah, before the writ is issued, right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the sheriff's gonna give them 3 or 4 days usually anyhow.
And, well, the sheriff doesn't usually call for 3 days. So you have
there's
that
a slower
additional 3 days, and then it's going to be another. So you're really looking at about 10 days between the hearing and when the sheriff serves. Yeah.
Well, and the one that really frustrates the hell out of me is that you folks have worked so hard to get this eviction done. It's an elaborate affair. You have to make sure you get the wording just perfect. And that's one thing I will mention. I have heard people say that on your basis of your demand for your FED is it for the rent for the month of, let's say it's May, has not been paid, and late charges and any other penalties or the service, cost of service. I've heard people say, just leave that off. The late fees and the service fees, just leave that off. Make it so
Yeah, you have to leave
brain dead
all that off.
simple.
Right.
What's other people's experience?
You can include the late fee. It's no problem in Polk County.
I know, and what I do is I put as allowed by law, and I've never had a single problem with that. But I have had people say, this is not about all your other expenses. This is about the rent. That's what the magistrate tells them. It's like,
in January,
wow.
I had a FED, and they didn't show up, so it was an immediate. And then those blockheads, I've never seen this before in my life, they appealed the judge's writ of removal. Appealed the writ of removal for non-payment of rent when they didn't show up.
Oh, yeah,
So it goes to district court, and of course the judge asks them why they didn't show up, and the idiot says, well, 3 days isn't very much time. And we're already talking about several weeks down the road or a month.
Yeah.
And the judge said, well, that was going to be your argument in small claims court? And he said, yeah. He says, out. But I've never heard anybody appeal a writ of removal for non-payment of rent. That was a first. Has anybody else ever had that happen?
Yeah, we've had them in the 6th Judicial District. I can't pull a specific case off the top of my head, but we have had that happen.
What would be their excuse?
Hey, Pat,
They don't pay the rent. It ain't paid.
Typically what we hear is that they were not properly served.
right.
That's
That
what we
wasn't their
normally hear.
argument here.
I make sure I'm always properly served. So yeah, not a
Have
problem.
you had that, Gary?
We've had the sheriff out while we're starting to remove her things, and she said, no, I've appealed it. You can't do it. And the sheriff didn't believe her. He was going to go ahead with it. Called from his supervisor saying, you got to stop.
Gary,
Stuff out on the curb.
many years ago, I had a rear removal, and I was over there, and the sheriff shows up, and he says, on the way over here, I got a call that they appealed it,
Right.
and it was called off.
I think they have to pay like $300 though.
Yeah, but they get it back. That's the problem. They give it back to them.
No, they don't. They only if they win the appeal, I think.
Right, only if they win the appeal.
Yeah.
They think it's
These
$300.
people got theirs back, which they shouldn't, but they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had that happen years ago one time.
Okay,
And
another
the thing of it
question
is,
for you.
the judge that gave them the extension is the same judge that ordered them out several months before on another property. Same judge. What up?
Well, and I'll bring up, I've got one thing, but I heard someone else that had a question.
Go ahead, Prakash.
Oh, I was just saying, isn't that $300 or $500 or $600 they give it to the court when they appeal it? That money is supposed to be coming to the landlord, not going to the judge.
Oh, the appeal fee? Yeah.
The tenant
Well, it
owes
seems
the
like it. Yeah, it seems.
Who ever heard of that?
Appeal
Here,
fee
they appeal
goes to
it.
the court.
Yeah, they appeal it. They stay there another 10 days or a week, and the money goes to the court.
Well, we have lots of issues legally. I'm going to bring up this one thing that's particularly a pet peeve of mine, which I can't hardly believe that this is how it works. But once you win your money judgment, you've got to file several different documents, your precipice, you've got to get your notice of garnishment, and then you take that all down to the sheriff's window at the clerk of court downtown and at the Justice Center, and slide it under their protective window. And then you think, well, okay, and how much? And then they're going to charge you $60, $70. That's for the service of it. Now, how do you think they're going to serve that? How are they going to accomplish the service?
You mean,
They're going to mail it.
Oh.
You're paying $68.50 or something, and they're going to mail it. I think that should be like illegal because they're going to mail it. And then if you want them to get it done like really quick because, hey, you've been waiting on this money all this time and you landlords have suffered enough and you finally win your judgment. Now you got to go through this and the collections is just horrendous. But so it sits there in their office. It's at least a couple weeks before they're going to get it mailed. I think that is outrageous, and they have to do it. You have to do it that way. You have to go through the Polk County Sheriff.
And the 120 days starts when you file, not when they get around to serve.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
you lose that time.
Right.
From the time that you've been received your notice of garnishment, they start.
Well,
the
no,
clock
it's when
starts
you
then.
It's when you file your judgment for garnishment.
Oh, when you file your judgment for okay.
For garnishment, that's when the 120 days starts.
Okay, when you filed.
If they don't get around for 2 weeks, you lost 2 weeks.
Okay, well, that's going to be a meeting, and because we're just right at almost 12:30, but I think that's a topic. If I don't know how long we're going to be able to not get together, but we need to devote some time to that because I know there's an awful lot of people that they get their tenant out and they just never even bothered to file for their money judgment. I sure hope you know that if you file them both on the same day, there's no additional charge for the money judgment.
There's too many landlords that don't file through with a money judgment.
Right.
Far, far too many.
Well, that don't follow through with it or even filing it. But if you win it, I used to have a drawer full of money judgments that I'd won.
Guess what? I still do.
And they're pretty close to worthless unless you know how to perfect them. Right. And we have a 5-year window at least a 5-year window to get it collected.
We were going to have a meeting on that, remember?
I think, yeah, that's what I'm writing down. We need to do that. It's just going to focus on just
a judgment debtor's exam meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just the whole collections issue. We'll call it money judgments and judgment debtor's exam. Exactly. Now, I'm no expert on judgment debtor's exam.
Well, I'm not either, but I'd like to learn how.
Oh, those are easy.
Andrew, you might
yes.
Include, Gracious, Tom Gracious. He's been at us before to talk about how to track people down and get it collected.
Yes, and we do have a service that'll do that too. We have a tracing service that we offer to people, but if you can't find him, he's a good source too. Scott,
how much is that, Andrew?
Well, we charge $150. It costs us $147. So we make $3. I don't know. We should make a little more, but the thing is what I like about this one service, if they can't track them down, they'll give you $100 back. So
good to know. Good to know.
That's a skip trace, and like I say, but it takes you 30 days. You have to wait. It may take them, 27 days before they finally get back to you. But we have had one of our members use that service, and they did find the employer, and they got them served right away and collected the whole thing.
Can we have a meeting on this, Andrew? Because I know for sure I'm going to be one of those that's going to do a money judgment here soon. Can we have a meeting on, given the circumstances and that there's going to be a ton of these going out? Can we have a meeting on this soon to kind of articulate the steps and so we can kind of have a foolproof process? Because the last thing I want to do is go down this path and then go, oh, didn't do this, didn't do that.
Absolutely. We've already had Pat tell me that we have to have a meeting, so I have to do it. And you're telling.
What was the name of the person too that was mentioned?
Oh, downtown there is a fellow called Gracious Investigations.
Okay.
And he used to be a vendor partner. So if you want to use this service, I'd appreciate you call me first so I can use that as leverage to try to get him back on board. In fact, I'd love to have him come and speak to the group again. It's been, I think it's been about 7 years since he spoke to the group.
I don't know that it's been that long, but he would love to come back and speak.
Well, we were down at the Botanical Center. I think it's 2013.
Well, he'd love to come back and talk.
Yeah, could have been, could have been 2012 actually in the fall. Anyways, it's been a while. But he's,
So, Andrew,
well,
when-
he's in that business. That's what he does, investigations, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So when is our next call, Andrew, so we can get the small claims court agenda situated? Is it next Wednesday? Oh, no, Thursday, I mean.
No, I hadn't been intending to make it quite that quick. Our next regularly scheduled meeting would be June. Let's see, it's May now. We just had it today, 14th. So it would be the second Thursday in June. But I think we could have another one in 2 weeks from now.
Can we please, in light of the courts, or in light of the moratorium being lifted on the 27th, can we please have one?
Yeah, 2 weeks from now, 28th?
Yeah. On the 28th.
I'm still so new at this. I need to learn everything. Please.
Okay. Well, we're more than glad to have them. It really is not, as long as you don't have huge high expectations on me other than knowing how to spin the wheel, you know. But I'm not the world's best at having a big long agenda, but we can have a topic, and the topic would, I think this money judgments and judgment debtors exam is great. But what are you also talking about the filing procedures at all, or we've had a recent meeting on your document preparation for court when you're going to filing for a money judgment. That was Pam Stearns.
Where is that? Is that saved somewhere?
I don't know. I think,
okay,
I mean, the documentation is here. So I'll get that documentation actually pointed up.
We had one at the Boy Scout Lodge. I remember Kayla that worked for me got up and talked a lot about it. Gave a very detailed explanation of it.
Yes, and we've had 2 meetings on that, but one not too long ago with Pam. We'll have another one though. That was documentation for court. It's always a good topic, isn't it?
I've been doing this for 50 years, and I still go to court and lose sometimes just because of the stupid stuff the court does or change or.
Oh yeah, I've always filed the evidence for the money judgment as other event, and I went down to a money judgment hearing. I was intimately involved in it because I was a plaintiff. And you know, you learn everything when you're the plaintiff or the defendant. All the other head knowledge you have, it doesn't count till you're actually one of those 2 parties. And then all of a sudden it comes alive. Oh, I did this wrong. And the judge is telling you, you did this wrong. Well, it's the same way I've done it 50 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Or more.
Gary, sometimes
no,
it's which side of bed they get out of.
The what? Yeah.
Sometimes it's which side of bed they got out of that morning.
She made me label everything with an exhibitor's tag, and well, guess what I have now? You can get these little things, you know, you buy a whole packet of them. Here's an exhibit. It's a plaintiff's exhibit, and that goes with the money judgment. Anybody else had that experience where she was kind enough to say, well, you filed it wrong, but I'll let you file it again now. And I had printed out all my documentation and everything. So
they get mad when you don't pre-file it.
Oh yeah, that's a problem.
They don't like that anymore.
Yeah, you have to have everything e-filed. But I'm talking about where I had the category was other event. And she said, no, that needs to be like a proposed exhibit.
Right. But I think they added that somewhere along the line. They didn't initially have that in there, I think, Andrew. So I think that's the issue. Because I did the same thing and then realized that they had the proposed exhibit as the alternative. So started doing it that way.
I'd go to the bank on what Mary just said because she knows what she's doing. But if you're going to file that now, I think you file those evidence documents in a money judgment. You label them as a proposed exhibit in the e-filing. But yes, okay, so we say June 14th.
I thought it was May 28th.
No. Whoops. Oh, okay, good. Keep me straight. May 28th. May 28th we'll have I think money judgments and judgment debtors exam is a very intensive topic.
You can handle it.
I'm going to try to get somebody else to handle that. I'll see
Is
what
there
I
a
can do.
supervisor of small claims down here?
I have to, what's that?
A supervisor from small claims?
Well, the trouble is you're trying to get a non-attorney that really knows what they're doing to present information that would be normally legal advice.
Whatever happened to Mark?
You know, the last 2 times we've invited him, he acts real retired.
No.
We'll see what we can do. All right. Well, okay. It'll be one of those 2 topics. It'll be the May the 28th. We'll have them 2 in a row. Money judgments and judgment debtors exam preparation. And then the other one will be about documentation for documenting your file for court, just specifically on money judgments. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to try to keep focused on that. Yes.
And you said there is, maybe I'll call you later, but you said there's stuff on the website already on the documentation.
There is some, but there is another document that I have here, and I will go ahead and post that to the website. I just have to make sure that we're not giving out legal advice, and I'll keep it generic enough.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Andrew, I think when you're providing it in a group setting, as far as information, I actually don't think it is legal advice. I think that you're engaging in training and education. And so you present it that way. And then at the beginning, what typically you do is a caveat of this is not legal advice. We are providing information and education so you know what to do. However, if you're going to file it on your own, however, if you have questions, you should talk to an attorney with regard to procedure. And that usually covers what you need to cover.
Didn't she do great? Let's have Mary, when I get to that point where we need somebody to give the waiver of privilege or whatever they call it, we'll have you explain that. Waiver of liability.
Right. I just sent, Pri had asked me for some information, which I sent some of it this morning. And there is actually, she was asking about some language in terms of making an informal, essentially an informal demand of a tenant when they need to produce additional dollars or whatever it is. And there's some generic language. And a lot of times, if you use generic language, it cannot be interpreted as providing advice, nor being threatening or engaging in other activity one should not engage in. I had somebody accuse me of that once. So in all letters and so on, for example, you have to have a caveat of, you know, we're going to pursue all legal options that are available to us. You have to use very generic language. You can't say, well, I'm going to take you to court and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You cannot do that, because that then gets into a threatening tone, and you just don't want to do those sorts of things. So there's always a caveat. There's always a way to turn that information so that you're not giving advice and you're not being threatening, but you're being very firm about what it is you intend to do. So all those things I learned being in the legal field for so many years.
Great. Well, I did make a decision a while back that I wasn't going to live my life in fear of the Supreme Court's Commission on the Unauthorized Practice of Law, but I still try to be respectful of our vendor partners.
Sure.
But vast majority of time, I phrase it as, look, I'm helping you with regulatory compliance.
Right.
You know, regulatory compliance. This is what the court requires. Particularly the computer part. So, okay. And I don't see anybody here. It looks like they'll turn us in if we get into the weeds on technical. But yeah, it is a foreign land. I'm telling you, I've studied this stuff an awful lot as a layperson. I've worked on at least 85 eviction cases, and it's like going into a foreign land, and you have to learn how to speak their language. And you know that if you look at any of the Supreme Court rulings and stuff, oh my, you know, but they will really make it complicated on you. And so it helps so much to have your ducks pretty well lined up.
So Andrew, on that note, and the fact that you've established that this, there's legal disclaimer, and this is just under the auspices of education and regulatory compliance, is it too much to request that there be like an algorithm on the website that says, okay, here are the documents that need to be filed in a money judgment case, so that our community is well educated to complete the forms that we're supposed to, so we're ready for this when this comes down the pipeline?
Actually, believe it or not, the Supreme Court does that for you. But I'm going to add that. I'm going to add a menu option on there about documentation preparation, and we'll see what we can do about tweaking that, and I'll be in touch with you again, Pri.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see if we can't prep that up a little bit better.
Okay.
Okay, well, I will mention that I won't mention by name, but one of our members reported that he had been tested positive for COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's scary, scary stuff.
Is this Polk County?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and it's actually someone that came to my office about a week before he found out he tested positive, but we had our distance and everything. But I hope everybody will keep safe. My masks are on order, but if you see me out and about in Home Depot, please don't run up to me and smack me because I don't have a mask on. But there are a lot of people that are getting a little more touchy about it. In fact, I rode my bike to the office today, and I went by the Wittern Group factory building, and in the back they have picnic tables. They had 8 or 10 people gathered around picnic tables. None of them had a mask on.
That's crazy. And Andrew, I am, for members, if they're interested, I am making masks. I've got my sewing machine out, so I am making them.
Oh.
I'll be required to wear a mask at work. Well, I am required to wear a mask at work, except right now there's only 2 people customarily working in the building at a time, and we have 22 employees.
It's so simple. It's so simple. You have an excuse. I don't want to give you something that I don't even know I have.
Right.
You know, you don't have to be, it's just no big deal. And it's like, it's only going to be a short period of time, but these people having a fit. Well, I saw an article, I don't know if it's California, where was it, where the person got his arm broken by somebody that didn't want to put a mask on. Did you see that?
No.
An attendant at like a Target. They jumped on him so bad that they broke his arm.
Well, in our own backyard, Mayor County, Des Moines Mayor, and our governor are at battle with each other because of this opening of Iowa. The CDC says we are, number 9 or number 10 fastest growing COVID case city in the country. So Mayor County is very, very upset about this opening of Iowa. I'm sure you guys are all aware of this, but we have a battle going on in our own backyard between our mayor in Des Moines versus our governor.
Well, they got that problem in New York too.
Well, this one is pretty close to home because Mayor County announced that we would be trying to get people to stay at home until July the 1st, and of course Governor Reynolds is saying no, we're going to try to open things up quite a bit more on May the 15th, which is tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow we're going to be trying to get back to near normal, except that wear masks in groups larger than 10 are still, I think, disallowed. You're not supposed to congregate in groups larger than 10. But we're all safe today, and thank you so much for your time. I'll let you get on with your busy lives.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Bye.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Have a safe. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Or tonight.
Bye.
Or tonight, too. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. We hope this production empowered your business. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more great content. And don't forget to join us in person for powerful networking and priceless information at our next live event. For all event information, please go to our website,